Hello everybody, welcome back. Today we're going to finish off 7.1 absolute value. Number 3, we're going to evaluate each of the following expressions. So it says 5 multiplied by the absolute value of 1 minus 7. So that will give us 5 multiplied by the absolute value of negative 6. 1 minus 7 is negative 6. And that will give us 5 multiplied by 6, which is equal to 30. B, we have so the whole thing is squared, so we're going to do what's inside the absolute value first. So remember, work from the inside out. That's so important here. So we're going to need brackets, and we'll do the absolute value in there. So a little bit happening here. So we have a negative 4 we're not going to touch yet. 5 minus 8 would be negative 3. That whole thing is squared, right? So then what we'll do is we'll take the absolute value of negative 3, which is 3. Right? And negative 3 times 4 is negative 12. Negative 12, and negative 12 squared is 144. Okay. Next, we have negative 9s out front, so we're not doing anything with that yet. Then we have double absolute value this time. So we need 2 absolute values within one another. Alright, so the first one is negative 1 absolute value, and then you're going to subtract 3 from that. Alright, so the absolute value of negative 1 is 1. So we get 1 minus 3. Okay. And then that's going to be negative 2. And then the absolute value of negative 2 is going to be 2. So, and that's multiplication. So the answer would be negative 18. Okay, next one. We have 5, absolute value negative 2, plus 3, absolute value 4. So we can just take the absolute values directly right away here. So the absolute value we know of 2 is going to be positive 2, and we're going to multiply. Absolute value of 4 is 4, and we're going to multiply. So you do multiplying before you add here. So 2 times 5 is 10, plus 12. And that'll be 22. Add it together. So next one we have 3 absolute values. Okay, so this one's a little different, so be careful here. Oh. Okay, so we have 3 absolute values, symbols that we gotta be careful here. So there's 1, and then we have another one, and another one. Okay. We have the absolute 3. So the absolute value is a negative 1. So that's where you got to be careful here. So the whole thing is taking the absolute value. And the negative 6 is absolute value, and the negative 1 is absolute value. So you got to be careful there. And that may be hard to see. Just be careful there. So that's what we have. So the absolute value of 1 is going to be 1, positive 1. So we change that to multiplication, 1. And the absolute value of 6 is going to be multiplied by positive 6. And next what we'll do is we'll multiply these. We get 3 minus 12. And that will be the absolute value of negative 9. And that will give us the answer of 9. Next we have is 7 absolute value of negative 1/14 minus 5 absolute value negative 2/15. Okay, so it's just fractions this time. So still take the absolute value of a fraction. So the absolute value of negative 1/14 is 1/14. And the absolute value of negative 2/15 is 2/15. So then we multiply numerators, denominators stay the same, obviously. So this becomes 7/14 minus 10/15. And now we need a common denominator to subtract these. The common denominator will be, so the common denominator would be 210, but if you notice, 7/14 is simplified to 1/2, and 10/15 can simplify both divisible by 5, simplify to 2/3, right? So then it's easier to find common denominator of 6. Again, you could have done it the other way, and then you just had to simplify the fraction. So 1/6 we know can be written as 3/6, and 2/3 we got written as 4/6. And then we just subtract the 2 and we get negative 1/6 for our final answer. And that's it for example number 3, evaluating expressions. The next one we have is a number line. Okay. And it wants to write an expression to determine the distance between the following points, right? So from A to B, how would we determine the distance? So again, you can do this a number of different ways. All right. You can do A subtract B or B subtract A. It's not going to make a difference, right? You can do it either way. Okay. So again, from A to B, you can subtract B subtract A or A subtract B. We're going to do B to A, so just be consistent. That's all. So I'll just do A subtract B to find the distance, right? There's no start and stop here, so it's fine. So negative 3 minus a negative 1. Okay, that's going to equal negative 3 plus 1, which is going to equal negative 2, which is going to be 2 units. And you can clearly see that it's 2 units from the number line, right? I'll steal this exact expression. This time I'll swap the negative 1 and the 3. And you're going to clearly see it's going to give you the same result. 1 plus 3, which would be 2, which is 2 units. Obviously from A to B is 2 units. You can clearly see that, but it's just showing using a absolute value to do that. So A to C, we'll do the same thing here. A to C. I'll just steal this to make it like easier. So A is negative 3, C is 2. So subtract 2, which would be negative 5, which would be 5 units. Oh, wrong one. Sorry. I do that down here. So subtract 2, which would be negative 5, which would be 5 units. Okay. Next one is C to A. So I'll take C, which is at positive 2, subtract A, which is at negative 3, which would be 2 plus 3, which would be 5 units. All right. Now B to C. So B to C. So B was at negative 1. C is at 2. So we want to subtract 2, which would be negative 3, which would be 3 units. And that's, you can kind of see it's 1, 2, 3, right? And do the opposite. We have C to B. So C would be at 2. Right? And B was at negative 1. So that would be plus 1. That would be 3. Which is equal to 3 units. Okay? So there's just 6 questions you can work on there, just to make sure we get an understanding what absolute value is. So that's it for 7.1. In the next video, we'll look at absolute value functions. We'll do some graphing with the functions as well. Alright? Thanks everybody for watching, and we'll talk again soon.